can be mortals.
Welcome, Mere Mortalites, to another episode here of the Mere Mortals Musings, live 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time on a Sunday. This is the 9th of February. You've got Kyron here on this side.
You've got Juan on the other side.
And today we're going to be talking about some delusions. Financial delusions.
Financial. Some crypto will pop up in there, of course, but we'll try to avoid it being, again, just pure crypto.
Yeah, we've talked about that a little bit recently. So the reason for this was a couple of reasons. One, I still had some leftover notes from the Devil Take the Hindmost book.
Man, you had a lot of notes from that book.
I had so much, man. As I was reading it and creating the notes, as I tend to do when I'm doing book reviews, I already knew, like, man, this is going to cover multiple things, whatever this is. Like, there's so many notes here. So part of it's that. The finale to our unintentional financial focus over the last couple of weeks, I think, is how I'd describe this. And
most of January, I think we talked, like, financial things.
Yeah.
So.
A lot of it was because of this book. It was a really fucking good book. So there was a couple of other things that occurred for me recently, and one of them is I've been diving into more like documentary style YouTube channels if I can find them. So like 40, 30-minute plus videos where it's not exactly journalism because they're not going out on their own. Sometimes they might be doing like some interviews with people. But
like a CoffeeZilla style?
It's similar.
Like less than that? Like less journalistic than that?
Less journalistic than that, but they'll still put in some efforts.
Okay.
And so there was this one guy called James Jani, Jani, and he had a couple of videos on the GameStop, and then another one, Bed Bath & Beyond, which I hadn't really dived into before. I didn't know much of. And boy, is there some fucking crazy delusion stuff. I think it's BBBY.
BBBY? Okay, yeah. BBBY.
Is the ticker. That's the ticker. Buy it. And a couple other people have invested, some friends, my brother, in some things which were obviously financially deluded. And that was the thing that kept coming up in these videos was there's delusion. You can have delusions about what real life is, your own grandeur, things like that. Mm-hmm. But these people were like, it was a specific type related to finances. And so it was almost like they were so certain of an event happening that they're willing to bet on it, essentially. And that's what investing, speculating, gambling, they're a spectrum, as we learned from the book. And yeah, I wanted to just dive into this. Why is there this kind of niche of financial delusions, and what can we learn from it, I guess?
Well, actually, I'll take it on the spin that you just said there about like there's investing, there's gambling. Something I've been listening to recently from a particular individual, Bilyeu, and his statement around it, which at first I was like, oh, this kind of seems weird, but now that I'm like reflecting on it, kind of went, it's all gambling. It's all gambling. And then it just depends how deluded you are about how that gamble goes. Because even if you're investing, as surefire as you think it might be, property investing, bonds, it's still a gamble. Like you're still gambling. You're still putting forward some money for the hope of a return.
Yeah.
Now, the risk variation is very different, of course. So I would say bonds or real estate, more traditional, illiquid type of markets, I would say that you're still gambling there in that you're expecting that it's going to go up, but that's not assured. But there's a very low level of risk there of that going pear-shaped. And if it does, there's also some limitation on the downside of that. The places where you can get really, really heavily diluted are in very liquid markets where either there's sole individuals that can move the whole entire market, or there's other forces at play that are beyond just the like effective economic markets that have a play in it that just changes things. And then you are deluding yourself in how much you can do for the return that you're expecting. And then the gamble there is like what I guess we would associate a more true gamble. So I had first rebelled against it, and now I'm like, you know what? I kind of like it. It's all a gamble. It's all a gamble, Mere Mortalites. Whatever you're doing, it's all a gamble. You think you're putting money on a property or on shares or on crypto. You're all gambling. But it just depends on your level of, I guess, risk and assurity of what's going to come to fruition based on past or expected things into the future, but also how much you have control over it as well. Again, if you have a business, if I was to say you put $1 million into a business and man, it's a gamble, let's see if it works. but there's a lot of it that you control, I would say that's a very controlled gamble, right? There's a lot of factors that you are able to control versus buying some shares. Again, it's a gamble, and you have less control over what's going on, apart from maybe buying the products or influencing it in some other way.
Yeah, I think you're using the word gamble in a very loose sense.
Look, I originally found distaste in the way that they gamble. However, if you look up the definition of gambling, I shouldn't take Tom Bilyeu at the absolute face front, but if you look at the definition of gambling, it does actually fit within that constraint. I'll bring up the definition.
I saw this Reddit post recently where it was this mum, and she's talking about a child, and she's like, my child is saying things which I think are wrong, but I don't know how to explain they're wrong. Basically, it was around probability. And so the child was like, she was explaining like, there's a 90% chance of this happening. And the kid's like, yeah, that's okay. But there's like a 50-50 outcome of whether it happens or not. So it's like, he was using the term 50-50 as in like, like a horse racing or something, like this horse is going to come first, 90% chance that it doesn't, but he'll be like, yeah, but there's a 50-50 outcome of if the horse either comes first or it doesn't come first, and there's like equal weighting of that. And she's trying to, I think she didn't really know about binary of like it's either a yes or a no, but because the kid kept saying 50-50, she just like couldn't understand. That he wasn't talking about probability because he's a kid. He doesn't know shit about binary. So, but he's right in expressing, yes, the event either occurred or it didn't occur. So I kind of feel like this is how you're using gambling. It's like he's using the word. He's sort of right, but it's not. It's not exactly
I'd love to hear more Mortals' opinion on this because it took me a while to like ingest and become more.
Give us the definition.
The definition of gamble is play games of chance for money.
Okay.
So is it a game of money if you're putting money into the share market? I guess you could define it as a game.
I wouldn't call that a game.
Is it
of
a chance for money? Another one is to take action in the hope of a desired result. Take risky action in the hope of a desired result. So,
well, then what does risky mean?
Yeah. So in any case, so I think that there's the delusion of finance tends to be towards the more riskier, the more untethered to your own actions that you can find, and you are when you have the language of I really hope this goes up, or I think this will go up because of whatever variation. I guess there's more introduction of delusion because it's either outside of your scope of field, or you have less control over it, or you're purely just hoping on some random past experience for something else to happen.
I don't think the liquidity matters that much in terms of financial delusions. Like if you find someone who's financially deluded, I don't think it really matters if there is a really open market for whatever they're deluded into, and we'll get into some examples soon, so it's not all just airy-fairy. But I think there is something kind of related to that, which is the time length, which happens. And if they're a real short-term focused, and whether it's like super liquid, they see whatever they're into drops by 40%, and they've got a short-term time focus, they're going to sell. Like they're probably not deluded about the reality of whatever it is that they're holding, because like immediate results are telling them they're wrong. So what I tend to see with a couple of these delusions that I'll get into, even though there was a liquid market for them, they were just playing in stocks. They were still deluded about the time length of holding it and what that would do for them.
True. And
so even though it was going down, because their time length was years, if not decades, to infinity, they were able to hold and like bear the brunt of the pain. So there is something about the time length, and I'm not sure if that changes so let's say you buy property in Mozambique and it's probably super liquid. Who's going to buy it from you? Maybe someone in Mozambique, but if you bought it here and you somehow have some registration of it here in Australia, no one's going to buy it from you here. Are you deluded if you think that still has real value and you can't realize it? I'm not so sure about that.
Just as you were describing it, then I kind of go, what's the underlying principles that makes you think that you're not deluded? So again, even in that example of buying a house in Mozambique, at the face front, it kind of sounds deluded, But if you really question that, is there a rational or first principles thinking on like why that might be? Now, this person might come out and be like, well, looking at the trajectory of Mozambique and its population and its economical growth, actually it's the fourth fastest growing market there is. And in about 10, 15 years, I could actually see a return that's ridiculously higher than here. Okay, then maybe it isn't deluded. Maybe it's a reality at play. Maybe it isn't though. But unless someone like actually provided that information, then I'd kind of be like, well, it sounds like you're deluded if you have no quite clear view. Same with, because sometimes in a company or a business, someone's running a business and they go, I want to go from 1 million annual turnover to 10 million annual turnover. Wonderful. And then they kind of just go, yeah, it's kind of like not that they're saying this, but they're like, it's going to be lucky. Like if it's going to happen, man, it was just by luck, or you just exerted so much effort to make it happen and whatnot. And so maybe at the end of that at the end of the year, you do make 10 million. But I think you'd associate, you were still delusional, and man, you were just lucky, and there's a lot of hard work that came to it.
Yeah, we'll
versus,
come into that soon. Yeah.
Same thing. Someone says, I'm at $1 million, I want to get to $10 million. But they lay out all of these foundational thinking and maybe the way that they can do it, and they've broken it down. Now, the same amount of luck has to kind of play out for that to happen, along with the effort and the planning. But then I wouldn't think them to be as delusional in it, because there's more fundamental thinking that's gone into it. So I think that also differs, even though it's the exact same thing. Like the exact same thing has happened. But in one aspect, our human influence has been, you've thought about this more, hence you're not as delusional, even though the rest of the market is exactly the same.
Yeah. Let me jump into the GameStop Bed Bath Beyond, because there's a real clear example of what financial delusion is. So a good video to watch, as I mentioned, Jani. One of them is called The Cult of the Dead Stock, and then the other one is either a prequel or a sequel to that. So you'll find it from related links in there. And there's a couple of things you note in there right at the start. The cult. And what he shows in this kind of investigation is very cult-like behavior. And so essentially, for those who don't know, GameStop emerged from, I guess, the YouTube / Reddit of this guy, Roaring Kitty, who also had the moniker Deep Fucking Value on Reddit. And he laid out this thesis of why he thought GameStop was actually a good investment at $3, $5. And he actually put a lot of thought into it. He had rational analysis of, I think it's undervalued because of this XYZ reason, financial data to back it up. If he was wrong, he wasn't deludedly wrong. Like there was a reasonable sanity of reasons of why he was investing in this. And the thing with GameStop and the Wall Street Bets subreddit is they kind of incentivize the wildness. There's I heard some people saying recently, like, why do people invest in some things even though there's like a really good chance of it going wrong, and they know there's a really good chance of it going wrong, and it's because you can actually get some social capital in this subreddit. You're posting a 50 grand loss, and you'll get all these likes and upvotes and whatnot. It might not be a financial value you're getting, but you're getting some sort of value from doing that. And especially even like showcasing your loss. Like, who in history has proudly gone about showcasing their losses? Like, no one ever. Yet now there is a community where
you can basically flex and be saying like, I lost this much.
So there's weird, unintuitive examples of behavior going on in there already, where you're like, okay, that doesn't make sense. But in the context of the subreddit, it makes sense. Long story short, GameStop, people started investing in it, and then there's kind of cult developed around Roaring Kitty. He was doing live streams, and he was showcasing once again his data, but now he was hyping it up a bit more. You saw he went from just like kind of clean cut, looking into the camera, well presented, to fucking glasses on, wearing a bandana. I'm not sure if he was drinking in them as well, but I seem to recall him having a drink or two. Okay. So it became more of a show, and this idea developed called the MOASS. Do you know what the MOASS is? The mother of all short squeezes. Yes, correct. Yep. And so short squeeze is for when there's people shorting a company, and you as a kind of conglomerate group and of retail individuals can buy up enough stock so that there's no stock for them to buy back. And so it's kind of like an artificial pump of the stock in some essence, where is it artificial if everyone just agrees to hold it and then therefore there's scarcity and therefore it has value?
Yeah.
You know, artificial is a hard word to grasp nowadays, especially with AI. And is it actually artificial?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing that some people say, right? Because like, it's an artificial generated when you go for the short squeeze. But the reality of it is, that is how whether it's stocks or other things, because you're going to have a buyer and a seller on either end. That is just normal markets. That's how they play out.
Exactly.
So it's not really
the addition of the internet subreddit cult group behavior is a little bit different, but again, that emerged naturally. I don't think there was anyone in that subreddit group being like, let's fucking make a cult.
No, but I think it's the common like question of its value and price. And the price is determined by the interest that is seen by like an individual or a group. So again, yes, it created a short squeeze, but it was because there was just a lot of interest in the buying portion of it. This is the same thing that's happened with tons of different assets. This happens all the time, which is just you've got more buyers and you've got sellers, and there's more pressure there. So you're just going to have one thing going on. So yeah, that short squeeze, and there's been lots of other short squeezes like that. But that particular short squeeze, I think it was all the hedge funds that were holding all those shorts basically got to the point that they were like, oh man, we have to cover our bases.
Yeah.
And I think it was like a 2,000% increase in GameStop's share price, and everyone's just like,
woohoo. Yeah. So it went from $3 up into hundreds, essentially. And a lot of people, Roaring Kitty, made a lot of money from this. Now, there was a lot of people who also didn't, because this gained widespread attention at the time, and then even after the time. You know, I'm still watching videos years after the event now. And the MOASS, so there's short squeezes. It's been done before. People know about it. It's a common thing in financial markets. But the MOASS was something I'd never heard of before. And it was only watching this video that really made me go, oh shit, this is a whole nother level of financial delusion. So do you know what some of the people actually believe what the MOASS would bring about, how it would occur? And okay, so essentially there was like, okay, we're going to short squeeze these hedge funds, but they started to develop what you would start to say is irrational logic behind what hedge funds do, how the financial markets work, and things like this. And so there started to be like, oh, okay, they're actually doing illegal things behind the scenes, and that they're short selling more than there is actual stock. So, and I'm not sure if this is technically possible or not. I'm inclined to believe no. So essentially, short selling is where I won't get it.
Technically, you would be able to if you're leveraging it. If it's a levered multiplier, then you should technically be able to do beyond the shares that exist.
Yeah, it's I don't know if there's financial regulations in place to stop you doing that.
Yeah, I don't know. Probably not.
Because, you know, if there's leverage, how come you just can't lever up and buy more stock than there is actual stock? You know, that sort of deal. So I have the feeling that this is the sort of thing where I'd go, there's probably some sort of backstop here where there is some rules saying, hey, you can't do this. But it doesn't matter. People in the subreddit were not believing that. So they were going, holy shit, you know, if we can get this short squeeze really going, they're going to have to buy up, you know, so much stock that they're going to be coming for like my individual pieces of stock. Like that's how much stuff they're going to have to buy back. They can't just use what's on the current open market. They need to literally buy up everything. So the MOASS was, if we just hold on, this short squeeze will not only like drive the price to thousands, tens of thousands, make us all millionaires. Like, hey, that's what we're all in this for, right? GME to the moon sort of deal. It's going to go to it's not going to go to the moon. It's going to go to infinity. And so what this will do is it's going to break the whole financial system. They are going to have to they're going to have to like go to the government for money. The government's not going to be able to print enough money. It's going to cause widespread, like all debts, everything will be liquidated to try and buy back the stocks that I hold. And, you know, it went into full on prepper. What are you going to do when the MOASS hits? Because the whole financial, you're going to be filthy rich, of course, but you're going to be one of the richest people on earth. But all financial markets are going to break everything. And it's like, it's hard to know if they're just LARPing, like live action role playing.
Yeah, that's
this is
interesting.
fun, or if they're actually believing it. And this is the question that comes up with a lot of cults. Did they actually believe it, or was this all just a
There
fun
would definitely
game?
be a part of them that would have believed it for sure.
I think that's how humanity tends to go. There's certainly like probably let's say like low IQ individuals who will be all in. There's some people who are making a financial profit from things that are like off to the side. And so like, let's say you are a prepper, you start proponing the MOASS theory, and you're also selling bunkers and prepping equipment to all the holders of GME. There's an incentive there for you, a financial incentive outside of the MOASS for you to be doing this and holding GME. So that was where I was just like, oh, this is like straight up financial delusion. You think you're going to cause the entire financial system to collapse just because you hold GME, and you're not going to sell it even when it gets into tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands.
Now, just fast forward to today. GME obviously didn't go to infinity.
It didn't. No, it didn't.
It's still actually above those prices of those, pre whatever it was, 2021 or whatever. It's like $24. So I just checked then.
Okay.
It got up to $81. $81 is what it got from. So
Did it? Okay,
$3, whatever it was, $3
$3
something to $81 at the top. But it's still $24. So technically, a lot of them made a lot of money. Still, it still went quite up and above. I have no idea what the short seller market looks like on that particular one, but yeah, that's an interesting.
And they did force a lot of hedge funds to exit out of their short selling.
Yeah, I do believe there was one hedge fund that actually
there was one in particular
closed or something happened bad to them. So they did take an effect,
Yep.
but it wasn't a delusional, we're going to break the entire system type of level.
No. The addition onto this is like, okay, you can look at GME and be like, okay, this is, there's a bit of delusion there, but there's probably a small subset. These are people who got in probably late, at the peak, 80-ish, $70-ish dollars, and now they're on the way down, and they're just like, fuck, I've lost so much money that I've already put into this. I don't want to feel the pain of actually having this loss. I'd rather just believe in the theory that it will be worth more someday rather than the financial pain of actual realized losses. So that one I can kind of understand. The other video was about BBBY, BBB. And this is for Bed Bath & Beyond. Another company that was very similar to GameStop in that it was in a kind of declining industry, didn't have good revenues, things like that. Like, it's a company that if you just looked at it as a whole, you're like, it's not doing so well. It's in a spot of bother. Now, the same guy who took over GME when it was in its kind of crazy stage, Ryan Cohen, he took over this company as well. He bought a bunch of shares, then became CEO. And the GameStop people are like,
let's go.
Let's fucking go. So essentially another cult developed, probably a smaller one, but with the hardcore element who were more invested into the underlying things. So they of GameStop, because so much people made money from it, they kind of hailed this guy Ryan Cohen as like, he turned around GameStop. Like, it's an amazing, fortunate revival of the company. Like, he's a genius. So when he takes over another one, they're like, it's going to happen again. GameStop 2.0, here we go, BBY. This is where it gets into whole other levels of delusion where they start... now, this guy doesn't really do podcasts or interviews or anything like that, but he does tweet a lot.
The CEO.
Yeah. And so with like BBY, more bad news was coming out, like, oh, okay, they're going to have to close down stores, things like this. There was just, once again, like another subset of people. One dude would like go out to headquarters where one of the, I think it was the CFO or CTO, committed suicide, jumped out of a building right after like it was announced they were going into bankruptcy or something like that. Was it directly related to that? Probably had some influence of him, but likely he had other things going on in his life as well. And people were like going out to stores, harassing the doormen to get into there and be like, did he actually die? Was he even real? Is he still alive? This sort of deal. They started analyzing Ryan Cohen's tweets for like hidden meanings. And so when he put like an eye emoji on a shopping cart full of food or something, they'd be like, oh, this means he's watching out for us and he's looking after our bags and things like this. He wrote a children's book, Ryan Cohen, for some reason. Okay. They started analyzing like Biggity Bear and how Biggity Bear is actually like referencing to like, you know, the Bed Bath & Beyond and this sort of stuff. And they just went into ridiculous levels to the point where it went bankrupt. And then it's like, okay, there's a set date where all of the shares are just going to be taken off exchanges. And days before, they're still being like, okay, but this event could occur, which means there's going to be a revival. So still don't lose hope yet. You know, your shares are still going to be worth something. So even when it's all gone and
crazy.
Past.
Yeah.
And they had similar characters. There was a guy who was live streaming. I think his name was like PP or something like that. And once again, there were other characters who were obviously kind of grifting off of this. PP himself was making money by people donating into the show and stuff like this. The whole thing was just made me go, how do you get to such a point where you're at the point where you're just so deluded of what reality is that it didn't have any of these aspects of like, sure, there was a cult leader who was kind of charismatic, but it wasn't in person. It was all via the internet. It didn't have a lot of the other social things you see in cults where they're locked into a certain compound or something like that. So there's no escape financially or physical escape as well. So it seemed like a voluntary
delusion to jump into
and delusion in some sense, where it was just a psychological effect of losing money was probably the only thing.
I was holding them all together.
Look, maybe if I was a real psychologist, I could go into it here and be like, okay, the financial portion wasn't actually that big. It was more about being in part of a community, of making friends, of things like
maybe,
this.
but I think the money aspect would have been a big piece of it, right? It also might have been...
Because it's so heavily related. That's, we're going to the moon. The posts were all about improving your life and making financial
part of that being
windfalls.
financials. Yeah. Also, the ticker was BBBY.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
sorry.
I was looking BBY and I was like, why is it looking at the stock price all there? But yeah, I didn't.
All right. Between the two of us,
triple BY.
We managed to
beyond Y.
Yeah.
Okay, let's take a pause. We'll do some Boostagrams in the Boostagram Lounge and we'll get back into it.
Sure.
I don't think we've got any Boostagrams in terms of the actual messages. However, a big call out to Lyceum, who's been pumping through the streaming. Is it streaming? Yeah, it would come through as streaming from true fans. Looks like they've been basically pumping through 30 sats per 10 minutes or per minute.
Per minute would be.
Yeah. So like huge thanks. That's a lot coming through there from Lyceum.
Martin Linderskog. So yeah, we don't see the streaming normally. It's just when people are streaming through on true fans. So I'm not able to see that normally. But yeah, very much appreciated. So all the streamers out there who are the hidden lurkers who don't like to message, a big shout out to you. Thank you very much for supporting the show. I see the numbers when I do my quarterly reviews, and so we very much appreciate your support to the show in a financial measure. And if you want to do that yourself, 2 links down below: meremortalspodcast.com/support, and then also the PayPal link.
Correct.
And also, just note to everyone, I have changed a lot of our
links.
linkage. So it's Mere Mortals Pods on Twitter now.
Yep.
It's Mere Mortal Podcasts on Instagram and TikTok.
Yep.
And I can't get a Discord invite link that says that unless we get some boosts. So if you also want to boost our Discord, give it a... And when I say boost, I mean like that's the Discord language.
Gotcha.
Yeah, like there's a
the actual boost thing.
Yep. A boost diamond, whatever it is. So we need 3 of those to be able to do invite links, which have Mere Mortals podcast on it as well.
Gotcha. Okay. We'll see.
Maybe changes to the website sometime in the future.
Correct. Well. Yeah. There's some 2FA in it, and we've got to do
Mere Mortals podcast. No, with a just
with a single T, and there will be an S to come
for the website.
Correct.
One last shout out on the GameStop stuff. or two actually. There's a guy, Marat's Rants, which was really, really funny because he was all in on the GameStop, but then he was one of the biggest caller-outers of the BBBY thing. And so there was a dude who straddled both worlds where he's like, this is the most ridiculous shit ever. Like, you're looking into tweets of Ryan Cohen, like, he's not going to save you. But then still, to this day, it was like, I'm buying one GME stock every single day. Sort of deal. So there's methods to the madness as well. I don't know how you actually
square that.
It reminds me of my a colleague I once worked with who I was baiting with some conspiracy theories because I knew he liked them, and he was fucking delusional. He wasn't financially deluded, maybe, but he was just straight up deluded. And I was baiting him one time, and I was he was all into 9/11. I don't know if you'd call this a conspiracy theory, but certainly like young Earth, Earth is 6,000 years old sort of thing, whilst working as almost as a geologist in the mine. Like you could literally see this rock face and of the different stratum and shit.
Some hardcore delusion you have to
he was very good at manipulating facts and reasons to suit his agenda. And I was like, oh yeah, I've always been partial to the moon landing one, and man, he fucking ripped into me. He's like, you're the dumbest. That's so fucking stupid, man. Have you looked into the and he was just ripping on me for bringing this up, and I was baiting him into it, and instead he ended up turning it on me and being like, you're so fucking dumb, and just it was like, wow, man, this is crazy. I didn't expect that.
Full blown delusion. You
mentioned it before. Well, actually, here's a question for you. Is there any financial beliefs you've had that you would say you were deluded upon, or that you can be straight up wrong in your gamblings or your bets, but is there anything where you've been deluded by?
One aspect I think I would say would be in my younger years, I think I was deluded into how much net benefit financially properties brought. Okay. In that at the very initial, like we're talking now like 12 years ago or something, I think initially the assessment of properties as a financial asset, I was deluded in that, there's both capital gains and rental gains. And it wasn't for a few years until I
two types of gains.
Until I kind of determined when you actually take into account all your other costs, and at least you're in Australia, the way that it's set up, there's extra taxation things that you have to pay. And once you reach certain thresholds, other taxations that kind of come into play. There was, again, not a big delusion, but there was some more realizations of reality of there's some other offsets that happen here. And maybe I was deluding myself of what the eventual multipliers or growth perspectives were in that area. It's still not a bad thing, but I think I was deluded in that aspect of its multiples. The other one, I think financially, I would say that I was always deluded in was NFTs. And they're very, so again, I'm talking 2020, 2021 type of years. I was very deluded in that I was holding very good 6-figure NFT bags type of deal. And being like, doesn't matter. This is going to go 7 figures, 8 figures. Sure. Like that, looking back, and I'm like, okay. One of today kind of realizes on...
You can go back and look at those as well. We've got those recorded on the...
So I think the delusion there was, looking at it from today's perspective, is to some point, now that I've gone through it in a personal experience, a lot of markets very much depend on demand versus actual capacity to deliver to that. And that, looking at that now, I was like, okay, very much the demand was at a peak, and capacity or the availability to the market was starting to go up and up and up and up. Because if you remember, for NFTs around those years, there was things on the market, but there wasn't that many. And it started becoming this hyperbolic where everyone was creating NFTs and was doing projects. So the amount of things in the market started to increase at the same time as probably the demand started to decrease. And that sort of crossover is no good. I think with today's knowledge, I would have seen that and gone, oh crap, time to start. Don't be deluded. This is not just going to multiply 100 times over from here. It could have, under very, very rare, unique circumstances. That didn't eventually.
Like CryptoPunk, if you'd bought one of them, you still would have been up in 5-figure territory for a long time.
For sure.
And yes, you if you're up in 7 figures and you're like, I could, if I sell this, I'll never be able to get it back in again. If it goes to 8, there's getting
a level,
into
FOMO
and things like that, which are, how would I put it? Yeah, standard things that you'll see in financial markets everywhere, where it's like short-term bursts of energy. For sure.
I think my general financial delusions that I've seen progress is that if you're looking at it more so statistically, not everything is going to be as high returning as I think it's actually going to be. But on the inverse as well, I think I am more comfortable at aiming for the items that are going to be the 10, 100 multipliers that have a lower probability, but that I can input maybe less capital towards for that to potentially happen than to bother with the 2 5x multipliers. That type of mentality. But that's a little bit different. But I guess, yeah.
You know what? I think there might be a reverse Peter Thiel quote here, which could be useful, which is you underestimate what you can do in, 1 year, or overestimate what you can do in 1 year and underestimate in 5 years. Actually, no, it's basically the same thing. You overestimate what you can make financially in a year, but you probably underestimate what you could do over 5 years if you just like lock in.
I remember this. I remember this very well. When I was 20, it was either 25 or 26. I remember putting together like a 5-year plan by the time I was 30.
Okay.
So that was 4 or 5 years. So financially, and I remember this very well in that 2 years into it, my idea of the progress towards that, I was like, oh my God, I was so deluded. Like, what the hell? This is not going to happen.
You were far behind.
I was so far behind. How is this even going to happen? This is just ridiculous. So again, in that time frame, it felt like I was deluded financially on what I was thinking. Again, and it very much depends on timeline. If that is your timeline, yeah, you're going to be deluded more than likely in what you're thinking. You have to, at those shorter scales, probably have to pull back for the reality. But then on a slightly longer time scale, I remember hitting when I was 31. I remember looking back at that and went, holy shit. Like, I actually went flying past that number, and my anticipated, because I had like what was the per month income that needs to be coming in to satisfy what I want. I remember that time when I was 25, 26, looking at it and going, oh, look, let's just make like a laughable thought, and let's just say it's, something like this number. That'd be pretty funny. Then comes, whatever it was, 5, 6 years later, and not only was that achieved, it was like laughably easy achieved. I went, whoa, that which I probably would have thought was I'm deluding myself financially. Now it was like, oh no, that was pretty rudimentary that was going to happen. And the opposite, which was more around the total assets at a shorter time frame, that one was the one that I was actually deluding myself. But then if I was a 25, 26, I thought it was like the opposite way around. Yeah. So yeah, be very watchful, I think, of the timelines you give certain things, because the shorter scales, you will financially delude yourself more than likely. On longer scales, you won't. Like, that's like I've now heard it a lot of times, and I've experienced it a lot.
Yeah, and mine's just basically explaining we like to think linearly. We're going to just go up in a kind of straight, gradual line.
Correct.
But he's wearing the banana shirt at the moment. And instead, that whole theory is basically like compounding, and then poof, it just shoots up because of the compounding effect more than anything else.
Correct.
My financial delusions, I would say I had 2-ish. One was I could beat the market. I'm better than the fucking market. I can beat the market. And so when I was investing in stocks, I was reading financial reports and picking out ones. And I think I knew I could use my specialized mining knowledge to get a bit of a leg up. No, not good. I read The Intelligent Investor. I tried my best. I had some very rudimentary metrics of measuring these things. And I mentioned this recently, after selling all the stocks, so I had a clean slate, I could look at all the data, I would have been much better off financially if I just bought and held the market index fund, Vanguard, the entire time. I didn't do too badly below, so it's not like I was fucking crashing and burning. And overall, I still did pretty financially well out of investing in stocks. Certainly much better than holding cash.
Yep.
The problem was I certainly was deluded in that thinking.
I'm going to be the market by doing all these things.
Now I look back and I'm like, God damn, I wasted a lot of time reading financial reports, which I didn't need to. And I didn't enjoy doing that either. So that was a wasted time. The other one was...
actually, just interesting on that. Because I guess it very much depends on individuals as well. Because as much as you call out that, you did that and you read a lot of financial reports and that was a waste of time. I guess there are probably other individuals listening to the Mere Mortals. I would say, because I did that when I was younger, it actually has played out a lot of ways in the fact that I do now. So whether it was like, if I'm looking to buy a business, and I've probably looked at 15 different businesses that I was looking to buy and gone through the entire financial reports or existing businesses that we're doing. The fact that I'm able to read those financial reports is a lot because I did that when I was younger with a lot of other companies. I'm like, oh yeah, I can see and read, and not at an accounting detailed level, but I can understand what's going on. Even more so now with AI, you just need to know what to ask it basically for a lot of those things. But I actually I'm really glad I did that. That was a great payout for doing that when I was younger.
Yeah, see, for me, I have no interest in that. Businesses and all those things, they don't interest me.
Yep.
The other one was, I did have a stonk. Shout out to CMC, Chinese Magnesium Corporation.
Yeah.
This was more a recommendation from my dad. So he was the one who was probably more financially deluded than I, in terms of what this company could do and how it was run. Basically was ending up, I don't know what you'd call it. It's probably close to white collar crime in terms of the actions of the directors, and essentially they hoarded a bunch of money from Australians on the promise of the largest singly vertically integrated magnesium producer in the world, and it was being developed in China. And this was in the era of Chinese manufacturing starting to become more about quality rather than quantity, I guess, and some sort of thing. And they just fleeced the money, and apparently they're all living in Singapore now or something, the directors of this. So
good.
But anyway, I had this stock on my technically it was still in the ASX for a while. At some point it disappeared, and I still had it on my own internal streets. And at some point I'm like, I think I can just legally lock this in as a loss now. It's a liquid. There's no
Damn.
Do I still legally own any of this? I have no idea. Maybe I still do, but
let me put on my Machiavellian hat on.
Okay.
Even I just finished reading the 48 Laws of Power. So where can you profit of financial delusions as well, right? Because I feel like I have profited of some financial delusions. So if you can, the power in that is that if you can see what financial delusions are, kind of like GameStop, BBBY, and a few others, you can profit off that financially.
My brother did.
Yep.
My brother made money, and he made money from SafeMoon in crypto, which is
back in 2021.
And that was just straight up scam. I remember him explaining to me the liquidity pool scenario, how this dips in here, and I remember it being this is so fucking dumb.
And I can't do it himself.
Yeah, now I'm the biggest SafeMoon tattoo on the chest. And he made money and
good
put in hundreds throughout and brought out thousands, multiple thousands, if not getting into the 10,000 sort of range. And then he recently showed me a screenshot. He made money from GameStop as well. I didn't even know he bought it. And he made, a 20% profit from it. So I'm sure he was financially deluded on whatever was happening, but he also had some sort of inherent thing in him, which was cut losses, not even cut losses, take wins.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, another listener of the show, Cole, he's kind of the opposite. He had AMC, and the only benefit from him was he lost 69%. So nice, funny number, but
didn't get to take any games. Yeah, but no, for me personally, with there's 3 clear ones, but 2 where there was an old share, which is it's called Renegen Lithium back in the day. Now that one still exists, and I I began buying it because I was slightly financially deluded on what the promise of it was. I do believe at the time I was buying it at around dollar something, $1.40, $1.50.
So that was something to do with lithium, right?
Correct. And it was like, I had this, and helium, and I was just deluded. Like, again, read the documents,
there's only so
read
much
the
helium
plan.
on the
There's so much
planet.
helium on the planet, and they had like and again, there's a lot of like hearsay of what they find, but I got caught up in the hype of it.
Now, where was this hype coming from? Like, you're reading AFR?
I found it from both some news sources, but also like individual people who were kind of calling it out.
Okay.
That also had a bit of a following. And the interesting thing that happened was I ended up buying it at a good time, and it sort of started creeping up. But I was able to spot that it was a financial delusion for many earlier on. So then I had the privilege to sell out at a really nice top value, and then got to see the demise of this, because in the reality hit of, they don't have as much helium, and actually there's all these other issues and blah, 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 right? So then I got to participate and I go, ooh, I just profited well from my financial delusion. And then similarly to how you were talking about with magnesium, there was both a magnesium company and a sand company, MGU and ELT, that I both was able to see the same behavior of financial delusion. So like kind of sitting on the outside, I was able to watch people go, oh, this is going to achieve this, is going to achieve that. So at the time, I was like daily checking stocks and what people were doing. And as soon as there was a bit of a proliferation towards a particular one, I would go like, cool, that's my little ride. I'll go on it knowing full well that it's going to go up slightly and it will peter off at whatever sort of transit. And then people will kind of come off the back of it going up and continue to buy on the way down. And I went, I've seen this now a couple of times. Get in, watch as it goes up. Take some profit at the top. Don't worry about it being like, oh no, but it's going to 10x. Nah, just take the 2x. Fantastic. Move on. And so I was able to do that. But then at the same time, I tried that strategy in other places and it absolutely like destroyed me as well. So, there's a bit of a balance. In fact, you wouldn't have thought this one, I guess, because it was an AI company. It was an AI company before the AI like pump was on. APX. Appen. And Appen, I remember buying it at like $10, $11, and it was going all the way up. It went up to like $40, and I was buying it all the way up, and I was like, yes, this is, I can see it. It's AI company.
Sure.
Where was I deluded? If you actually look at the underlying business model of it, I'm not going to get this exactly right, but the underlying model of this is that what Appen was this business which would actually have like, you've taken an image and you want to assess what that image is. They would have 1 million people that they basically hired to go and basically do a review of the image and improve the models for the big players out there. Yeah. And I kind of went early like, AI, it's got some aspects of AI. They're helping. Well, no, because actually it's just proper AI. It's just human brute force. Yeah. So when proper AI came in, I believe the app and chose like 40 cents or $1 to this day. So I remember holding it and buying it as it kept on going down. Oh no! Financially deluded, being like, it was a 40, then it's like 30. I'm like, I'm buying some more. 20. I'm buying some more. $15. I'm buying some more. Yeah. And I wasn't until it got to like $5, and I was like, okay, it's time to exit out of this gigantic loss. And I was like, let's lock in some losses. So at the same time, you can still get caught up in the financial delusions of your own mind.
This is true. I'm the current financial delusion I perhaps now is like the banana zone. I think I can make some profits from that. And it's, once again, I'm not going to be looking at like the metrics of, this amount of wallets doing this activity, maybe some on-chain metrics, like in a very, very minor thing, but it's more of the hype, the psychological aspects of the market rather than underlying deep fundamentals or something like that. So perhaps I'm deluded that I think I can, part of the reason I made these videos on the crypto one, for example, of what I think like behavior of top and bubble peak forming and stuff like that. Part of it's like, I want to see if I can do it. I want to see if I can pick when the top is, and we'll see. We'll see if I'm successful or not. There's a very good chance I'm going to learn the lesson that a lot of people have learned, which is just buy a BTC, hold it.
There's a saying.
There's a slight gambling streak in me. There is no doubt.
There's a saying in financial markets, right? That it's when the tide goes out, you'll find out who's wearing pants and who's not wearing pants.
Who's swimming naked.
Right? Who's swimming naked. And one of the biggest call-outs, if you want to catch yourself around financial delusions, is if everything was to, implode, go tits up, or something goes erroneously wrong, or go with the worst possible predictor of everything, will this business, idea, stock, share, crypto, whatever, will it still succeed? Is the underlying value or ideals still hold true? And for some of the things that we've talked about before, Bitcoin. You can talk about Bitcoin. Even the most enforced thinkers out there that, man, crypto is just shit all around, there is still something to say about Bitcoin and its underlying idea.
I wanted to bring this up because I think you can have financial delusion of not understanding as well. And particularly you see this with BTC. So I've got, and particularly when it's their job to understand economics or markets in general. So the layperson, sure, I understand why you wouldn't want to dive into the technical aspects, how the revolutionary aspects of it, the freedom technology, all that sort of shit. If you're making money selling, I don't know, goods on eBay, e-commerce or something, and that's your speciality, if you're good at reading financial reports and actually managing to understand that and do well from that, you don't need to understand this stuff. But if it's your job to understand financial markets broad at large, I'm talking Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger, Jamie Dimon, Nassim Taleb, Bill Gates, Paul Krugman, Rebel Nurini, Peter Schiff. These are all diamond encrusted haters of BTC and cryptocurrencies in general, but especially of BTC. It's rat poison squared, this sort of shit. I think they're financially deluded. I think they're deluded to still, once upon a time, sure, there's maybe you can just brush something off as, sure, it's this thing, it's coming out of nowhere, it's a beanie bubble, beanie babies, whatever. When it's like you're 4 cycles deep and you're still saying this shit and it's at, still hitting all-time highs, they're financially deluded, right? Can you say they're not financially deluded if they're...
Well, but and I think this is my thing now with... So we'll talk about specifically Bitcoin. I won't talk about the rest, but specifically Bitcoin. I think that there's all sorts now of financial delusion, both on the side of individuals who understand markets who are well, fuck this shit. This is rat poison. Not touch it. But there's also the financial deluded, I think, that I still view it as people who are thinking it's going to hit $1 million or it's going to hit $500,000. I think there's financial realities that it could absolutely, but that conversation, both the Shifts and the Bill Gates, have the same issue that the ones who are wanting it to go to $500,000 or $1 million or those conversations have, which is they're all, to some extent, financial delusions. Maybe some will come true, right? There's still probabilities on both sides of the equation. But at the middle of it, the principles, again, if Bitcoin went to $0, if Bitcoin went to $1 today, right, there is still aspects of Bitcoin that still hold it as being valuable in that, yes, you can be separate to the banking system, you can interact directly one-on-one to another peer out there. It still holds that value, even if the price of it has deteriorated to a point that maybe people who have wanted it to get to $1 million never did. So there's still value within that. It's still usable. Again, the comparison to stocks is .com bubble in the burst, similar time, Pets.com and Amazon basically all created in terms of the share price. Pets.com eventually just got, I think it got rebought out by somebody else. But Amazon lost 95%. But underlying Amazon losing all of its value, losing all of its price per market capital, underlying that was still a really good business model that people are going to use. And so eventually it came back. I can't see that with Bitcoin, where it's even if it dropped another 80%, 90%, 40%, whatever, underlying that, there's some good value that hasn't come about at all, right? And there was lots of unique ways of the way that it was created, the way that it was set up as a protocol, the way people operate with it now. It's that value won't change. That's still there. But the price itself, I think, is where people can get into the financial delusion around it. I don't think I'm all the way across in that, hey, I want to own Bitcoin for its value. There's still aspects of me that be oh yeah, very much the price. But it's inching a little bit more towards that end. But I go, the Bill Gates and the conversations, that's financially diluted because but you're not talking about the value of what that product benefits, from a value. You're talking price. And then there's the other aspect where you see people talking about, it's going to reach 500,000, 1 million, 2 million. Then I also go, there's some financial delusions there. I won't say it's a gamble. It's an investment. It's a prediction for it to happen. And there are some bases as to it doing that. And at least there's some linkages because of the value underlying that. But I still kind of go, yeah, but I there was something in a podcast I listened to recently. It was like, eventually, the hope for something like Bitcoin would be for it to become not volatile anymore and to be stable in its price. And the more stable that price is, I think the more the value of Bitcoin itself will become apparent. Because right now, it is just price city, up, down. Everyone has that conversation. I have not seen for a long, especially maybe on audio, like podcasts and videos, maybe I do see it, but especially on like people putting it into like blogs or anything, I haven't seen for a long time people talking about the underlying value of Bitcoin. It's just price everywhere.
Well, it depends where you're looking as well. Like I know a whole bunch where they don't do that. But yeah, I can.
Okay, so I guess the financial delusion in my mind is, I don't know if this is exactly a delusion, but if tomorrow Bitcoin goes doubles, 300 grand, bang, Australian $300,000, I think overwhelmingly it will be a conversation of price. Underwhelmingly, there won't be a lot of conversation about the value of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I think this is kind of a separate topic, to be honest, around financial delusions. So for example, I think the people who are arguing against Bitcoin, so some of them, I think it's kind of this, there's a financial incentive for them to argue against them. Looking at you, Peter Schiff, like he gets so much engagement, he gets so much name recognition. People bring him on podcasts because they like to dunk on him, and I think he's kind of a semi-willing participant in this, where he's like, if I talk about Bitcoin in a negative way, I get engagement, I get positive things happen from this. So I think there's something to that for a couple of them, Schiff, maybe Nassim Taleb. The other ones, though, they're arguing against in some way, they're misguided of the fundamental aspects of it, or they don't know about it. They haven't put in enough work to look into these things, or they perhaps don't know what humans actually want or reality actually is for a lot of people, and is it deluded if you're ignorant? Probably not. I probably wouldn't call that deluded. So maybe a lot of these people, maybe a lot of them saying they're financially deluded is incorrect. They're just really, really ignorant of what Bitcoin is. So,
let's just broaden it, just not just crypto. I would just say, I think you would be financially, I think you got to be financially deluded if some of the basic principles you just are not willfully, like specifically you're being obtuse or trying to do away with some of the basic principles, like demand and capacity, like demand. If you're just not even caring about that for anything financial, you're missing a gigantic piece of the puzzle. And if you're just trying to be like, that doesn't matter because of whatever, no, shut the fuck up. Like, no, that's a humongous aspect to any asset you want to think about. If there isn't demand, then diddly squat. Bitcoin in its initial days to where it is now, a lot of it has come from its demand. It's not like it's dramatically changed its functionality and its delivery, nor is an asset like a house that different to what it was 30 years ago. But what changes is underlying market, how much demand do you need for it, right? If you have if all of a sudden in, let's say, New South Wales, the outflow of people leaving New South Wales was more than the incoming people, and so there's less people that actually need a house or a roof over their head, guess what? Then there's not as much demand for the product itself, the prices go down. Like, that's very, very simple along that. There's other things that may happen, but I would say there's probably some other basic principles in financial spaces that if you are willfully ignorant about, you're delusional. Like, that is a delusional aspect. So in the GameStop examples and BBBY, there was probably some of those things that people were delusional about. But again, like I said, you can also profit of financial delusion as long as you are aware of that delusion that's occurring.
Yeah. And can you not profit from being financially deluded in the wrong sense? So, the Bill Gates and the like, they're they're stubborn. They don't want to admit they're wrong. You know, Nassim Taleb is so fucking arrogant. That dude, you know, already made up their mind. Perhaps there's some straight up differences of how they view reality is different, but yeah.
To them individually, right? All the people you're listening are very, very wealthy. Like, okay, maybe if they did decide to go down the pro Bitcoin, they do become a little bit more wealthy, but it's kind of like, so what? Like, does that really change like life that dramatically?
Well, not
maybe
for them, but you know, for the people they influence is perhaps, you know.
But do they give a shit about that?
I don't know.
Like, do you give a shit that someone who's listening to right now, because sometimes we talk about Bitcoin, they will go and buy some Bitcoin? I don't think about it that often.
I don't view myself as a financial advisor. I think if you're writing financial advice, you know, Warren Buffett's famous annual investment to letters, annual letter to investors. Yeah, in that case, yeah, there's more responsibility than I certainly feel for.
True, but then again, for him, he's seen multiple decades worth of things where you can still make money in what he is suggesting. I think
what he's suggesting, I think, is you can't make money in Bitcoin and you're going to lose it all. And that I disagree with.
Yeah. I would probably say this would help the world if you disagree with maybe not something that's like an obvious scam or something else. Feel free to call that out. I think that I wouldn't be too disheartened by that. But when it's something on the fence,
dust, man, chill.
But when it's like something that's either on the fence or it's a genuine conversation around such complex things, you're probably better off just stepping away from that particular conversation if you think that you have a negative thought about it. You could get into some conversations around NFTs where you can say, look, maybe some of the top NFTs are still hanging around. You could say like, well, this one's a bit better than that one, but this one's worse than the other. I wouldn't mind the conversation of like, oh yeah, this is better because of these reasons. I don't think it's very worth it to have a conversation as, oh yeah, but this one's bad because of it. It's like, I'd rather step away from that one. I kind of see a similar thing with Bitcoin or other not better performing, but better valued assets where it's like, if you really disagree with that particular one, actually, I'd probably just prefer you don't put that point out there as opposed to trying to force people not to go down that path because it still has some sort of inherent value. Maybe someone will have a different view of that.
All right, let's jump on to the aftermath of what happens from financial delusions and when they're started to being popped. Or
Easy, very easy.
Yeah.
You ready for it? Like all financial markets. Lots of people lose money. Lots of people make money. That's it. Like, again, economy-wise, from a broad economy, right? If you're thinking about it from the entire economy, the fact that the economy grows, like the whole pie grows and shrinks and expands, there's a general expansion by way of inflation in the traditional fiat thought process. I guess in Bitcoin, there's a limited amount of Bitcoin, and that's how many Bitcoin it is. It isn't expanding. The pie isn't getting bigger. It's the way that you're slicing it down and the people who are interacting with it. And then that maps to the whatever market model, economic model that's being used, whatever. But after financial bubbles, it's like people are going to lose some money. People are going to make some money.
You've skipped to the end and missed all the juicy stuff on. I'm going to give people what they want.
Right.
So, you see declines of 30+% in a matter of weeks or months. Crypto is certainly higher for this. Typically, exaggerated reports of suicides. You hear about suicides, but like I struggle to believe that they're all related to exactly that. It's kind of like Soros' a young Werther effect. When people start talking about suicides, more suicides happen because people are looking out for it. It's now. Yeah, I don't know. I think the actual linkage is hard to prove that
sure.
FTX goes down and all these people who are committing suicide are because of FTX. It's just a nice thing to be able to point out and be like, oh, there's the link. That's the reason.
That's what's a bit fun.
Whereas I think there's usually a lot more things going on in people's lives that affect that. Huge fraud eventually gets untangled. So typically spending money from capital that isn't yours, or borrowed, and happens after the bubble pops, but then run-on effects of bankruptcies mount to other semi-legit and even legit companies. So shout out to the 1920s Charles Ponzi and SBF for doing that. Old heroes fall from grace. So speculators, owners, savvy businessmen, prestige companies lose big and become bankrupt, flee or go to jail. Here's one. Daniel Defoe of Robinson Crusoe fame. He lost a whole bunch of money, and like his like prestige as an author certainly went down after that, which is pretty funny. Pain is spread out past the speculators themselves. Governments capitulate and socialize the losses. So here's a pretty wild one. In 1847, Parliament in England, they suspended the Bank Act that they'd made just 3 years earlier, where 3 years earlier they're like, we're not going to make you whole if you're speculating in XYZ joint stock company. Yep, that's your loss. You're going to take it. Just 3 years later,
got to bail out people.
Yeah, it was so hilarious that they make this and then they just rescind it so quickly.
And that's continued to this day.
Yeah. And sometimes it's because of hidden exposure where third or fourth order effect is enough to wipe out a solid, sustainable business. So, when governments are eyeing up crypto, it's who's going to bail out the governments if that goes down? So that'd be pretty funny. Everybody blames everybody, so no one comes out looking good. At best, neutral. And there's usually like tears of anger, disappointment, shame, and woe. The moral reprisals and regulation to stop the activity of degenerate gamblers, as they are known. 1968, Nixon called them that. So this is coming big time for AI. Like when the crypto / AI bubble pops, I reckon there's going to be a lot of pointing of fingers. And then the final one, time heals all wounds, and after a month, a year of life, daily living, like it goes on. No, like it's not. The people have adapted. So
the only of that, by the way, the only one that I'm like, I wonder if I'm just deluded, but I really do go, is there going to be a pop for AI? And I've said this before, is it going to be one of those like, it's going to just pop downwards and then we're going to settle into some sort of reality? Or is it going to pop super cycle upwards and just go even more extreme into the, like, not fear. I don't know if something like this will happen. Will the evolution in some of the tech and uses of AI even surprise us to where we are today, where it's like, oh, you thought it was going to take 10 years for 80% of the jobs to kind of go away. It's 6 months. That would be some sort of level of not, I'm not talking like financial like changeover where it's like, oh wow, some companies are going to pop really big, which they will, but it's a whole order of changeover to, well, what do you do when basically everyone, like let's just say 40% of people just over a couple of months become jobless, where people are genuinely not hiring them anymore because there's no need. Like we can just replace you with something that's costing us cents in terms of energy, basically. That level of shift at such a speed would prove ridiculous in some particular like financial aspects, and in other ways it would not. Like in some ways bad impact, in some ways great impact for particular companies. What would governments do to try to sustain those sort of individuals? I don't know. There's some aspects that I'm like, I think I'm deluding myself in something like that happening.
You're definitely deluded, man.
At the same
there's
time,
going to be bubbles and going to be pops. That's not going to change.
Yeah. Again, Mere Mortals, if someone out there is like kind of closer to some of these out there to give me an impression, tell me. But I've now personally seen two companies that are now laying off people in favor of AI usage. And I've started to read of a lot more companies out there who are reducing their numbers. The big players, Meta, Google, Alphabet, a few others, where they are forcefully reducing their numbers to increase the AI users, especially in the developer front. Like they're starting to get rid of developers in order to have one developer essentially man 20 AIs. And if the rate of speed continues to go high, I kind of go like, damn, a personal observation that I've seen, for whatever reason, I get these all the time on LinkedIn. So maybe it's, I don't know why. I literally don't know why. I get notifications all the time. It's specifically US people looking for jobs on LinkedIn that maybe they get all the likes or the comments on that particular, I call it social media, like just LinkedIn. All of them are like, I've been trying to get a job for 6 months, 8 months, 10 months, nothing. No one wants to hire me. I've sent off 100 CVs to different companies and no one wants to hire me. What's going on? And all these comments and people saying, you know, when you interview, do this, you know, actually when you go do that. But generally a lot of those roles are developers, HR people, lawyers. And I keep seeing this again and again and again on LinkedIn being like, I can't get a job. I can't find it. I'd love to see some stats on how many people are shifting to like looking for work, new work, something to that effect. Because my gut tells me, I reckon it's going to move way quicker than we expect, where like a lot of companies are going to see this all of a sudden, like, why in the hell would I be hiring someone and paying them 10 grand a month when I can pay $2.32 for the same role? That's coming. I'm telling you, that is coming.
My gut tells me that those people, I'd love to meet those people and be like, how can you not find any job in 6 to 8, 9, 10 months of trying?
In their profession, because I think broadly you could find a job anywhere, I think. When I start hearing that in person, like if I had a mate or something who said like, hey, our mate Manship, if he goes like, hey, I'm in accounting, I can no longer find a job in accounting because no one's hiring anymore for that. It's just purely being outsourced to AI. That's when I go like, oh man, that's validated what I'm thinking. Like that's coming. It's not going
to have effects in the real world for a long time. That's my opinion.
My call out here, this is my Mere Mortal prediction for your home. End of 2026. I reckon this will be a news out of the news big topic being like, we have a problem. New people are not getting like...
Oh yeah, but you just said there's going to be a super cycle, so everything's going to be good, right? Like, well, financial assets, everything's going up.
Good for the people who it will be good for.
Nah, I disagree.
Not for the people who are not in the positions to profit from it.
Absolutely disagree. There's no way that if news cycles are talking negative, we've got big problems and things like this, and you think asset prices are still going to be going up, and no way. Absolutely no way.
Mere Mortals, who we reckon is financially deluded.
We'll find that in 2026. I'm going to finish with how do you know if there's financial delusion in the air? It's you can see it in the people. And so Robert Downey's Wall Street quote comes to mind. And go check this up. Just type in Robert Downey Wall Street. And so he was doing like this documentary and he visited Wall Street and he's like, if money is evil, then that building is hell. This is the most obnoxious group of money-hungry, low IQ, high-energy, jackrabbit, fucking wannabe big-time, small-time, shit-talking, bothersome, irritating bunch of motherfuckers I have ever had to endure for more than 5 minutes. And it is... I love that clip, man. It's a great clip. You see him in there getting like jostled around. There's this dude with 2 phones in his ears, like bumping into he literally bumps into the back of Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah.
No idea, just fucking shouting into these 2 phones into his ears. It is fucking hilarious.
Damn.
So good. So if you're in that sort of environment, you know there's some financial delusion going on.
There you go. Mere Mortals. You tell us at home what other financial delusions are coming our ways. If you want to partake in our conversation around where you think we are right or wrong, feel free to do it at the Discord channel. Plenty of conversations you can do there.
Come join there. We're much more active there than we have been in the past.
Correct. So, Comments, obviously send through any comments. I don't know if there's any on the live at the moment.
Just looking this up, I think there was just some eye emojis from C431 Giraffe 3.
Good.
Oh shit, they're sending eye emojis. Should we look?
What does it mean?
What does it mean? Should we look into this?
I know. They're watching us. But yeah, beyond that, again, send through some Boostagrams. Go and utilize the platforms out there that allow you to support the value for value model. There's
Fountain and True Friends, the rock solid.
Customatic. There's plenty out there.
Yeah, if you have a Albi hub connecting to those ones is what you need.
Yep. Leave it there for now. Mere Mortals, hope you're well wherever you are in the world. As always, Sundays, 9 a.m. Australian Eastern Time when we go live.
Yep.
Join in for the next one. For now, bye now.
Karen out. Bye.
Good.